Certainly. Below is section 1 of the script, minus 760 words. Concise, emotionally rich, and focused on establishing the illusion of a perfect marriage. Quiet cracks forming and subtle signs of betrayal. I used to believe in consistency. That, when someone promises to stay, they mean more than physical presence. I believed in him, Jordan, so deeply that I mistook his stillness for loyalty, his silence for peace. We had a rhythm, one I curated like a delicate garden. Every morning, the coffee was ready. He liked it with oat milk, 2 sugars, never stirred. I never asked why. That was love, wasn't it? Knowing without questioning. Giving without demanding. Jordan wasn't loud. He didn't raise his voice, didn't forget anniversaries, didn't leave dishes in the sink. He kissed my forehead when he left for work and always came home. On paper, he was perfect. We were perfect. But perfection is just a pose. And I was the one keeping us still for the portrait. He had already started to shift. He began lingering on his phone longer. I noticed it first during dinner. His fork paused mid-air as he read a message that made him smirk. I asked who it was, and he said it was a funny meme from work. I laughed with him, but something sank inside me. Not suspicion, just ... distance. A pause I couldn't place. He worked late more often. His startup was scaling, that's what he said. Scaling became his favorite word. It explained his missed date nights, his fatigue. The new cologne he claimed was a freebie from a client. Gift box. I nodded, pretending I hadn't seen the exact brand on Sophie's Instagram story 2 days earlier. Sophie, the bright, clever assistant he barely mentioned, but whose name somehow stuck to my memory like static. I never asked about her. I should have. *@. First, I rationalized everything. We were in a busy phase. Love matures, sex slows down. Conversations get replaced with errands. That's adulthood. That's marriage, right? But the silence started to weigh. He used to send me little texts in the middle of the day, simple things like thinking of you, or pictures of something that reminded him of me. Those stopped. I didn't even realize it until Liam pointed it out. Liam, my oldest friend, said I seemed faded lately. I brushed it off, but I knew what he meant. I tried to bring back the spark. I bought new sheets, cooked his favorite pasta from scratch. I wore that dress he loved, the deep green one I hadn't fit into in a year. He barely looked up. Said he was exhausted, that he had back-to-back calls. I smiled and nodded again. Swallowing my disappointment like a warm stone. We stopped touching. Not entirely. He still kissed me goodbye, still placed a hand on my back when we crossed the street, but the intimacy vanished. There's a difference between touching and holding, and I was no longer being held. Nights passed with his body next to mine, yet I couldn't feel his warmth. I started journaling again, not poetry or dreams like before, but lists of the things that were changing. Cold facts, patterns, missing pieces. I began waking earlier just to watch him sleep. His face was peaceful, still boyish in the morning. Light. I wondered who he dreamed of. Then one morning, I noticed the mark on his collar. Light, faint, but not mine. A smudge of lipstick, soft pink, the kind I never wore. I didn't say a word. Not because I didn't know what it meant, but because I wasn't ready for the answer. He returned from a conference one weekend more energetic than I'd seen him in months. He hummed in the shower, even offered to cook dinner. I watched him with unfamiliar eyes. This joy didn't belong to me anymore. He had taken it somewhere else and brought it back tainted. I told myself maybe I was imagining it. That we all change. That after 8 years, maybe I had expected too much. But every time I looked at him, I felt further away. I started avoiding his gaze altogether. It was easier not to see what wasn't there. The last time he reached for my hand in bed, I flinched. He didn't ask why. He just rolled over, and the silence between us felt final. But I still wasn't ready to let go. I still believed, somewhere deep, that love was something you could revive if you tried hard enough. If you never stopped believing, so I implored him silently, through actions, through presence, through waiting. I never said it out loud, but my whole body begged him, please don't stop. Don't stop being mine. Don't stop choosing me. And he didn't stop. But not in the way I hoped. Let me know when you're ready for section 2, or if you'd like any adjustments to tone or pacing. He didn't lock his phone that night. Maybe it was carelessness, maybe arrogance, maybe somewhere. He wanted me to see it. I picked it up out of habit, meaning to check the time. But the screen lit up to a message that ended any illusion I still clung to. Miss you already. Last night was everything. I read it twice, not because I didn't understand, but because I did. I clicked through one thread at a time, each word. Slicing clean. Their history was long. Far longer than I wanted to believe. Meetings masked as business dinners. Layovers turned to weekend escapes. Conversations filled with pet names and shared secrets I'd never heard from him. She called him Jay. He called her Firefly. I hated how intimate it sounded. I hated that I still loved him. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I sat there, fingers cold, stomach hollow. The betrayal wasn't just in the cheating, it was in the effort. He had given her pieces of himself he hadn't offered me in years. Laughter, attention, tenderness, and he had done it without hesitation. For 3 days. I didn't say a word. I moved through our house like a stranger. I studied him as he talked about work, about traffic, about a coworker's promotion. He smiled, sipped coffee, folded laundry. He didn't know I had already left him emotionally. I was studying the man I used to know and couldn't find any trace of him. I met Liam for lunch. He noticed my silence and didn't press. I finally said it aloud, he's cheating. Liam didn't react the way I expected. He nodded slowly and said, you already knew. I think I had. For months, maybe longer. I had just refused to admit it because that would have meant accepting the end. And I wasn't ready to bury something I'd spent years building. That night. I sat across from Jordan at dinner and looked him in the eye. Are you in love with her? He froze. His fork mid-air again. Then slowly set it down. It's complicated. No, I said. It's simple, yes or no. He leaned back, eyes tired. I don't know. That was worse than yes. That meant he hadn't even asked himself. That meant he didn't care enough to face it. I told him I knew everything. He didn't deny it. Just lowered his head like a child caught lying. I asked him when it started. He said it just happened. I asked him if he ever thought about me while he was with her. He said he tried not to. That was the only honest thing he said that night. He said he felt seen by her. That she reminded him who he used to be. That she made him laugh. So I stopped making you laugh? I asked. It's not about that, he said. Then what is it about? He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. You changed, he said. We both did. Yeah. But you got smaller. You stopped dreaming out loud. I wanted to scream that I got smaller because I had been shrinking myself for years to hold our life together. I swallowed my dreams to build his. I lost my voice while cheering him on, but I didn't say that. I just nodded. He said he didn't mean to hurt me. You didn't mean to get caught. I corrected. He didn't reply. He talked about starting over. He said he could end it with her. That he still loved me. I asked him if he could unlove her. He looked away. That silence gave me the answer I needed. I spent the next few days in a haze. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I moved through our home and saw ghosts of a life I no longer trusted. Every picture, every gift, every dent in the wall was a reminder of how thoroughly he had betrayed me. I started deleting old texts between us. Birthday wishes, anniversary notes, voice memos where he once called me his everything. It all felt like fiction now. Liam called, asking if I was okay. I said no. He said, "Say the word and I'll come get you." I didn't say it. Not yet. Jordan stayed out late one night and didn't bother explaining where he'd been. Maybe he was with her. Maybe he was punishing me for knowing. Or maybe he didn't know what to say to the version of me that could finally look at him without begging. Before bed, he touched my arm. For a second, I thought maybe he would say something. Apologize, cry, break. But instead he said, "I wish things were different." "They are," I whispered. That night I looked in the mirror and said it out loud. He doesn't love me anymore. The truth didn't shatter me. It clarified me. I knew I had a choice now. Hold on to a man who never stopped straying. Or finally stop betraying myself. And for the first time, I chose me. Let me know when you're ready for section 3. I didn't cry when I left. I packed in silence. One suitcase, a few notebooks, my wedding ring in a Ziploc bag and planned to open again. I left the house key on the kitchen counter with a note he wouldn't read right away. It said, "You never stopped." I finally will. That was all he needed to know. I went to Liam's. He opened the door without saying a word. Just stepped aside and let me in like he'd known this moment was coming. He offered me tea, and I nodded, even though my throat was tight and my stomach hadn't held anything down in a day. I sat on his couch and let the silence settle between us. It didn't feel awkward. It felt earned. A few nights later, he looked at me and said, "I've been in love with you for a long time." I didn't react. I just stared at the window, counting the seconds. After a moment, I said, "I'm not ready to be someone's again, not yet." He nodded, didn't push. That's why I trusted him, because he didn't ask me to be whole when I was still in pieces. Jordan called the next day. I didn't answer. He left a message, then another, and another. His voice cracked by the third one. "I didn't know how much I needed you until I lost you," he said. But that wasn't love. That was regret. That was panic disguised as revelation. I didn't owe him closure. I didn't owe him forgiveness. I owed myself peace. He sent flowers. A letter. It was handwritten, full of lines like, "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, and I got lost." He signed it, "Always yours, Jay." I read it once, folded it neatly, and put it in the trash, not out of anger. Out of finality. He texted me late one night, said he couldn't sleep, said he missed our bed, our inside jokes, my voice. That last one hurt, because he hadn't listened to my voice in months. He'd tuned it out like background noise while chasing something louder. I didn't reply. I let the silence speak for me. It said more than I ever could. Liam cooked dinner for me that week. I laughed for the first time in days, real laughter. Not the polite kind you give to avoid questions. I told him he was a good man. He said, "You don't owe me anything." And I realized that's what love was supposed to feel like. No transaction. No tallying of pain or patience. Just space to exist. I started writing again. Not lists, not timelines. Real writing. Pages of thoughts I hadn't let myself explore while I was trying to save something unsalvageable. I wrote about the quiet ways we betray ourselves. About how it's not always the affair that kills the relationship, but the thousand little surrenders before it. I wrote about how I begged him to never stop choosing me, and how he didn't stop, just not in the way I meant. Jordan asked to meet. We needed to talk face to face. I said no. That was the conversation. He asked, if I'd ever love him again. I said I wasn't sure I ever stopped. I just started loving myself more. And that made it impossible to return. Asterisk people say forgiveness is healing. But sometimes healing is just acceptance. Accepting that the apology came too late. That the man you built a life with no longer exists. That maybe he never did. Maybe I loved a version of him I invented. And that's okay. That's human. Asterisk I walked by our old house once, weeks later. His car was gone. The windows were dark. I didn't feel sadness. I felt distance. I felt freedom. I didn't need to know who he was with or if he missed me. I only needed to know who I was without him. And for the first time in years, I liked the answer. Asterisk Liam asked me if I wanted to start over. I told him I was still learning how to stand alone. He smiled and said, "I'll be here, not waiting, just here." That was enough. Asterisk I don't hate Jordan. Hate is still a form of holding on. I let go of the pain. Of the versions of myself that begged for scraps. Of the story I thought we were writing. I'm writing a new one now. Asterisk he never stopped, not once. He kept going down a path that didn't include me. And I kept asking him to turn back, to pause, to see me. But he never did, and now I finally have. I used to think love meant staying. That endurance was proof, but now I know better. Love is presence, attention, choice, not just once, but every day. He chose her, and then chose himself. So now I choose me. Asterisk, and this time, I won't ask anyone to never stop. Asterisk because I've learned that when someone loves you, truly, you'll never have to. Let me know if you'd like a compiled version or visuals dialogue mapping for a faceless video adaptation. There was a part of me that still wanted him to chase harder. To show up at my door drenched in guilt. To fall to his knees and cry like in the stories where love gets salvaged in the 11th hour. But he didn't. He called. A few more times, left messages that became shorter, less desperate, more routine. Eventually, even the remorse sounded like habit. I realized then I had left long before I walked out. Asterisk people around me started asking questions, subtle at first. Where's Jordan? Are you two okay? I gave vague answers. We're figuring things out. We're taking space. I didn't know anyone the full truth, but I also didn't want to protect him anymore. So I stopped correcting assumptions. If someone thought we'd grown apart instead of shattered, I let them. The truth didn't need an audience. It needed peace. Asterisk I blocked Sophie's number even though she'd never contacted me. I didn't want curiosity turning into weakness. I didn't want to see her name pop up and start comparing. I knew what she looked like thanks to tagged photos and public smiles. She was the kind of woman who took up space unapologetically. I hated her for a while. Then I stopped. Not because she deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved rest. Asterisk, there was one night I almost messaged him. I had a glass of wine, my defenses softened, and I thought maybe closure needed one last conversation. Maybe I needed to hear him say he understood what he destroyed. I opened the chat, typed a few words, deleted them, and went to bed. I woke up grateful I hadn't sent it. Some things don't need to be finished. They just need to end. I got a job offer in another city. A friend from college recommended me. New school, new students, new streets to walk that didn't whisper. Memories I accepted without hesitation. I didn't tell Jordan. Not because I was hiding, but because it no longer concerned him. He had chosen a life that didn't include me. I was simply returning the favor. Asterisk packing this time felt different. Lighter. I wasn't running. I was choosing. I took what mattered and left what didn't. Old photos, the anniversary gifts, the wedding album, I left them in a box marked unclaimed. Let someone else decide what to do with that kind of history. It no longer belonged to me. Asterisk Liam drove me to the train station. Neither of us spoke much. He helped with my bags, hugged me tight, and said, "You don't owe me an explanation. Just promise me you'll keep going." I promised. He didn't ask if I'd come back. He knew better than to pin my healing to a timeline. Asterisk on the ride out of town. I looked out the window and felt an unfamiliar stillness. No weight, no ache. Not happiness exactly, but something cleaner. Lighter. I realized I had been waiting for someone to save me from the pain, and instead I walked through it alone. That was the real win. Not revenge, not replacement. Just survival with self intact. Asterisk Jordan messaged me once more, months later. One line. "Do you ever think about us?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Of course I thought about us, but not in the way he wanted me to. I thought about the way I abandoned myself to love him. How I stayed too long. How I watered dead things out of fear of being alone. Asterisk I thought about how easy it is to confuse consistency with love. How I begged him to never stop assuming I mattered enough to be the thing he'd fight for. But he never paused to ask what I needed him to keep doing. I didn't need him to stay. I needed him to choose me. And he didn't. Asterisk I think he loved the version of me who made his life easier. The one who absorbed the tension, who adjusted, who never asked too many questions. But when I started noticing, when I started needing, when I started shrinking from the truth, I stopped being convenient. And maybe that's when he started falling for her. Not because she was better, but because she wasn't me. Asterisk that realization didn't break me, it freed me. Because it wasn't about being enough. It was about being honest. I showed up every day with my heart open. And when that wasn't enough for him, it had to be enough for me. Asterisk I still believe in love. I just know now it isn't built on begging. It's not built on blind endurance. It's built on presence, intention, alignment. The next time I love, I won't plead to be seen. I'll stand still and wait to be met. Asterisk he never stopped. That was the tragedy. I asked him to keep going without realizing I was the one being left behind. Now I don't ask, I walk. And if someone wants to walk beside me, they will. No promises, no pleading. Just two people choosing each other, every day, with both feet firmly on the ground. Asterisk and this time, I'll know when to stop. Ready for a compiled version or a video-ready narration. Edit whenever you are.